Hey guys, good morning. Can you guys hear me well? Hi Rajshri. And fellow juniors, hey. Hope you guys had a good good breakfast. Don't worry, this is not going to be long. I'm mostly going to be taking and sharing my internship and my full-time experience, and try and take as many questions as possible from you guys, so that I want to keep it more one-on-one and see if you have like any major questions or any major concerns about the whole internship and full-time process. A small disclaimer: trust me, most of you are going to do perfectly fine, and even exceptionally, even more better than you thought. So nothing to fear. I know you guys are just starting off your masters, and you're probably a little nervous, trying to figure out what the whole scene is. Coming from different geographical locations, US might seem like a total ball game in terms of the whole internship and full-time experience, but trust me, it's going to be great, and you guys going to have like a great experience. Let me just turn on my video. Apologies for the bad video quality. I'm currently in India, so you'll see me a little dark, little less light here. Awesome. Can you guys all see me? Thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Okay, just to start off, is there any particular big question you guys had, be it in regards to internship, full-time search, or I just share my experience and you guys want to like later see how the whole process was? Anyone?
I think I have one question.
Yeah, go
ahead. Most of the companies have online assessments in the first round, right, for internships. So are they expecting us to complete all the problems with all the test cases? Like in some of the interviews that I've given for 2 or 3 companies, I was not able to, complete all the test cases. Sometimes I missed by 1 or 2 test cases. So are they expecting us to complete all the problems with all the test cases solved to get to the next round?
So that's a great question. So I would say personally, no. It just depends on the type of assessment you have been given. Sometimes the questions could be really hard, sometimes it could be really easy. So all that matters is as long as you're performing more than the average, I think that should be great. There were cases in my personal experience. I interviewed with Amazon during my internship phases, and their online assessment had 3 questions, while most people had 2 questions. And my third and second were LC hard level, if you know what that means. And I did not solve both those questions, and all I did was first question completely and partially the second question, and I was still moved forward to the next round, as opposed to someone else who had solved 2 easy questions as well, with like some test cases missing. So to briefly answer that question, no, you don't have to solve everything. As long as you're doing better than average, I think you should be good. They're going to take a lot of data. Most companies have historical data, and they're going to get this bell curve mostly, and they're going to see what that bar is above which people are able to clear the final rounds of interviews. And if you fall in that range, I think you should be good.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Any other big questions? Anyone has any big interviews coming up that you want like quick answers before we get onto the whole speech? Okay.
Just a question. How long do these interviews go for? Like, one of the biggest problems that I'm experiencing, right? Not problems as such, concerns that I'm experiencing right now is whenever I fill in the interview details, I'm just an international student who just started. So when I fill in my education details for CU Boulder, I cannot fill in any CGPA. And me personally, my CGPA in my previous university was not as good. So will these like in the event that it doesn't work out in the first semester, will the interview still be going on in second semester? where I'll be able to supplement my profile with my CGPA for this first semester?
So let me answer that question in two parts. First part is if you're concerned that CGPA matters, or like CGPA is used in filtering out a candidate to even give an online assessment or an interview. For the most part of the companies, like most companies don't even look at CGPA as a big filter. What they look at is your projects and your resume mostly. Second, if you feel like you think that is going to affect your application process, did you have a chat with the recruiter, or like was it like an automated platform where you're trying to apply, or like is there like a person of contact that has reached out to you? Based on that, I would decide to just notify the recruiter saying that, hey, I would want to like continue this process once I'm done through my first semester and I have like a better CGPA or like a better profile to supplement, or I'm in a better position to give these interviews. And more often than not, most of these recruiters are very, very open to these things. They understand we all come from different phases through our careers. So more often than not, they are going to be very, very understanding of your scenario, and they're going to be open to let you continue your interviews in your second or fourth semester, whichever that is. Additionally, to answer the part of how long the interviews are going to be, it depends from company to company. If you have already done through your online assessment and someone's reached out to you saying that, well, we need interview dates, then it's mostly going to be done within the next month or two. You can always try and postpone it, but that's not always possible. It depends on how soon they want to fill the role, but you can always have an open chat with the recruiter.
All right, thanks.
Keval, did you have anything to add to that?
I guess no, that's pretty much it. And yeah, this is actually an issue because in the first sem you won't have a GPA. So if you just have, your a small message on your resume saying that, hey, that I'm in the first sem, or this is my first sem, or it's also fine to give your GPA from your undergrad. So that should work for now, I guess.
All right, thank you.
So, Karthik, do you want to kick us off? Sorry, my first morning meeting ran late, so.
No worries.
You guys want to introduce yourselves first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Karthik. Go.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Karthik. I graduated from CU Boulder in May 2020. We were one of those lucky, unlucky folks which did not have a graduation. We are hoping we'll come back to the campus and sometime walk through those carpets. But right now, I'm an SG2 at Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. I'm in their big data org. I mostly work on a slightly classified defense project, so I cannot give a lot of details about the project, but simple structure is it's very similar to AWS, and we're just trying to compete. I had a great experience as a master's student, and I hope you guys will have to. Keval, on to you.
Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Keval Shah. I graduated in 2020. I did attend the graduation with the 21 batch though. So yeah, so I was kind of lucky enough that way. And then I was also the lead TA for the academic term 1920. And then yeah, I'm currently working as a software engineer too at Splunk. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's almost been 1.5 years, and yeah, that's pretty much my update. And I also interned at the company and then got converted. But I think we are going to talk about that in detail. So yeah, let's get started. So Karthik, did you have any plan for like the outline? I was thinking we could just go through our individual experiences and then give some tips, and then also take questions pertaining to mostly jobs and internships.
That sounds like a plan. Okay, well,
Okay.
I didn't have any major presentation myself to
Okay.
go through our experiences and.
Okay, sweet. So, okay, then I'll just go first. So, so I arrived in 2018 and then in fall, and then, I was first. It is overwhelming in the very start, and then, before you go to your visa interviews, people in the US are telling you that you should start applying for internships. People who are already studying start saying you that you should apply for internships in September, you don't wait, and all those things. So, yeah, I had gone through the same phase as well. I was just cold messaging and just trying to reach out to everyone for referrals, and we have done that, and pretty much most of the students who come for masters have pretty much done that. So I'm just going to share my bit of that story, and then and feel free to interrupt with any quick questions, or if it's too long, you can also send a chat message for me to just skip something or speed it up. So okay, so so like I said, I arrived in fall 2018, and then I started. Initially, my focus was to get settled in, so I just took two graduate level courses, and my focus was to first fill the gap between what I didn't know and what was most required in the industry, because my aim was to I get into the industry. I had done some research in my undergrad, so I was pretty keen and decided that I want a job right after my master's. So I took those subjects per se and then started applying for internships in October. Now, there are two ways. First of all, you can leverage your current projects, your current knowledge, and land those postings and jobs which already suit your profile. Now, it's natural that you're more ought to get calls in those profiles, and the other option is that you try to explore other profiles which you're trying to learn at CO, which you haven't explored in the past. For example, I had done a lot of systems and high performance computing in my bachelor's, so I was applying for those postings and I was seeing a couple of them, and that was my safe zone, that was my comfort zone. And the other uh, area that I was focusing on was software engineering and data engineering per se, which is like essentially a software engineer in a cloud business. So that was out of my comfort zone. I also didn't have any industry experience, so it would get a bit trickier. So I was going on two parallel lines, and as expected, I was getting calls for the first one for my initial profile. My first call that I got was from a company called Cray, which is a rival of Intel, and they do a lot of systems and stuff like that. And then uh, it was a completely telephonic round because the company was in Minnesota, and um, they were fine with just doing 3 rounds of calls with an intern. So first one was with the manager, second one with was an engineer, and the third one with was the director. So it was essentially mostly discussing my projects, but because it was a research based position, there was no heavy coding, but they did ask me to write up a proposal and start. And good question in the chat, how did you start applying for these companies? So 2 years back, I think one of the most common medium was to LinkedIn was not so popular, or like LinkedIn's job posting feature was not so updated, so we were still you know uh, googling for a list of companies, going to their careers page and applying. In recent times, LinkedIn has a very good feature where you can actually see how many applications are there, what's the location, and what's the profile and whatnot. If you have any alumni who can refer you, so I would suggest it would be good to go both ways. If try to apply through LinkedIn, because recruiters are heavily active on LinkedIn. They can just see your profile, see that you have applied, go to your profile, check out your profile, and then if they like your resume, you'd get a quick call. So I think that's a good way to go. And then but for instance, if you are interested in a startup or a small scale company which has like their careers page, I would also recommend going through there. So for Cray, it was essentially going on their website, because I don't think Cray did a lot of LinkedIn stuff back then. And then I got an offer from Cray, and being an international student, I also asked, like, do you provide full-time offers? It is, I just, once you have the offer in hand, that's the point where you want to ask the recruiter that, hey, is there any possibility for conversion into a full-time job? I wouldn't ask that before getting the offer or what not, but it is definitely advisable to ask. So once I asked that question to the recruiter, she frankly said that the conversion ratio, we don't usually convert interns to full time, we just do new hires. So I got a bit skeptical there, and then because I was keen on staying at a company after my graduation, so I just continued my hunt. And then the second offer that I got was from a local company called Centurylink. Now, Centurylink is really big in Denver area. They are a big Denver-based communication company, and they have a preference on giving opportunities to local students. So that is really good. So another suggestion would be to also target local companies like Boulder and Denver based companies. There are tons. There are, all the major players have offices here. Like, you just name a company and I'm pretty sure they have an office in Denver or Boulder. So that's a really good advantage that we also get here at CU. And then so the CenturyLink interview was essentially on site. They called me on site to their research headquarters. It was a 3-round interview with 2 with engineers and then the final one with manager. It was since it was a data engineering position, they did ask me programming and then basic questions, and then the last one was a project discussion. So that was essentially this one. And then so I was keen on joining either one of those 2 companies. And then finally uh, that's essentially my outline. And then finally, when I took one of the courses called big data architecture in my second semester, and that course was taught by the director of engineering at Splunk, the country that I'm at. So he used to be an alumni and the professor for the course, and also used to work full time at this company. So he said that his company was up for taking up 3 interns that year. And then what he did was, he said, he clearly mentioned that he wants to take interns from this class. It was like a class of 50 to 100 students, I guess, if I remember correctly. And then so towards the this end of the course, he asked people for their resumes, checked out their projects, and invited, I think, 10 people to interview with them. And then I was also so I was picked, I interviewed. And then the position was also the data engineering position. They had a data engineering team, so I was more than happy to interview for them. I went on site, once again, 3 rounds, 2 coding questions, one with an engineer, one with the principal engineer, the final one with the manager. And then so that's how I got the final offer from Splunk. And it was a really good company compared to the other 2. Like, their tech was super latest, their infrastructure was on Kubernetes. So I was really excited to get that on my resume. And then they were also apparently converting interns to full time in most of the cases. So I was more than happy to get this. And the last Splunk thing happened around March, so just 2 months before the internship period starts. Before March, I was pretty sure that I was going to join CenturyLink or Cray or whatever. So it's essentially a big journey, and the start was very slow. And it is true that the pace gets picked up after the big December vacation, and you'll suddenly start seeing calls in January as well. So I would just be pretty blunt and say that yes, right now is also a good time to apply to big companies. Like, I think Microsoft does a lot of early hiring. Amazon is going to hire throughout, like before, right towards the end until they exhaust. I think, Karthik, you can talk about that. And then uh, that's pretty much the timeline. I think I see a couple of questions. Okay, so Karan's asking, how would you recommend preparing for coding interviews? Do you have any pointers outside of usual lead code hackerrank? The second question is, do you have any advice about how to write cold email for referral questions? Yeah, sure. So let me answer the first one. Uh, so uh, honestly speaking, platforms don't matter. You should just know your basic data structures essentially, because and if you're going to companies that are heavy on programming interviews, like Google, Dropbox, Netflix, etc., then you want to make sure your basics are on point. Like you don't have to flinch when a question comes around your basics, and also always be prepared for DP and graph questions. So that is, I'm 100% sure that you'll at least get one DP question and one graph questions if you're interviewing for those companies who are programming heavy. So yeah, and people prefer lead code because they have managed to get this huge chunk of examples, you know, that have already been asked in interview questions. And coming from a company, coming from interviewing people, we get lazy while creating new questions. And it is very true that old questions get repeated. So if you are able to find existing questions or references to questions that have already been asked, they are the best study material. But this is only with some companies. And yeah, so in my company, what we decided that we stopped asking interview questions like code programming questions, and now we also do architecture rounds, and we just try to understand more of it. We still do ask one programming question, but now that is up to the engineer to come up with that question, and no other engineer on the team can know. And do I have any advice on writing cold email for referral requests? So it okay, I'll just be very frank on this. So it's totally up to the person who you are sending the email to. Like, there are two kinds of people. One, people would like some background. They would like to know what you do, what you do, what you have done so far, what position you're interested in, what's your profile, and blah blah blah. And there are other people like me. If you send me a email for a referral, I'll go to your LinkedIn profile, I'll check out your profile, I'll check out the posting you want to apply to, and then I'll think, okay, if you're a good fit or not. And then if you're a good fit, I'll just send you a referral without any chit chat. So it totally depends. But to be on a safer side, I would recommend giving some context to, giving extra information doesn't hurt. So I would definitely recommend giving some context that here's my experience, here's the projects I've done, and this maps nicely to this position at your company. Can you please refer me? Yeah, so that's an answer to the second question. And the next question is, does lead code premium help? So, well, this is to completely my view on that. If you have an interview for, let's say, Google or Microsoft in a month, and then you want to practice all those Microsoft and Google questions, then you should definitely get the premium. Because they are very nicely sorted out on those basis. Now there's also a hack to go around lead code premium that I found in my days. Some guy So these questions don't belong to lead code, right? So it is completely okay to make them public. So I found a guy, what he did was he bought a lead code premium. He just scraped all those questions and pushed them to his public GitHub repository. And so if you're able to, I don't have the link for the repository, but you're able to find the same set of premium questions and also the details on his GitHub repository without paying for anything. But it's not updated. You won't find last year's questions and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's essentially your preference. If you're interviewing for a big company and want to grill like 50 questions from that, then it would be worth it, I guess. Yeah. That's the second thing. And regarding referrals, I think I'll like to talk 5 more minutes on referrals and then give Karthik his fair share of time. Okay, so it is true that referrals are the best way to get a recruiter's attention, referrals are the best way to land an interview. And yeah, now there are multiple ways to get referrals. First one is you reach out to someone who works, who you already know. And the second one is to just reach out to someone on LinkedIn, or just cold call someone, or just ask them. Now I think you should try both, but your first approach should be to reach out to people in your network that you already know, and then ask, because that's going to be quicker. And yeah, they can also vouch for you if there's an option to. And the thing with referrals is they just give you, companies just, what recruiters do is they first look at all the referred candidates, and once they run out of all those referred candidates and they don't find a suitable match, then they go to the big pool, the ones without referrals. So that's the importance of referrals. At least that's how they do it at my company and a few others. I'm not sure if each and every company does it. Now, is there like a certain quota on how many referrals an employee can set out? Yes, there is. So each employee is limited to a number of referrals, and so you have to be quick and you have to be careful as well. And that's pretty much it. I don't think people would be hesitant on giving out referrals for internship positions. Yeah, and I guess that's pretty much it. For cold calling, your first preference should be CU alumni, immediate alumni, like bug people from my batches, my junior batches. They are fresh out into their companies and they'd love to, help you all, help the bigger community as well. So yeah, that's where I would start if I'm looking for referrals. And make sure that you're well prepared. So for example, if you're interviewing for Amazon, it's pretty straightforward to get a call from Amazon. So make sure you're well prepared. And yeah, I think, what, Karthik, go for it, man. That's pretty much my update here.
That's really great, Keval. I mean, that's a lot of info referrals, and I think I vouch that. I mean, I think Keval and I can't stress enough on the power of referrals over regular applications. It streamlines the process much quicker than the regular pathway in general. So the best way is, yeah, like he said, reach out to people, see if there are any openings in their team, and they can directly refer you. People like from what I know is that they can directly email their managers or skip level managers, and you instantly get a call back in the same week or something like that. So that's the kind of a power a referral has. It's really critical to try and get all the info out there. At least when you're trying to get for a referral, make sure you send across your resume. I think this applies even for the cold emails. One thing I would like to add is when you're sending out a cold email, make sure you're sending all the info required. You don't want to be doing a back and forth. Just send in the requisition ID or the link you want to apply for, and your resume and the complete background. And more often than not, people are really looking forward to these nice candidates, so they get there. And especially having the alumni network, we're proud and we want to refer more of our juniors and get more of our batchmates into it. So just send in our referrals, and we're more than happy to put into it. Any more questions before I go through my journey? Mine's going to be short. Don't worry. We're going to keep a lot of time for questions at the end as well. But if you have any particular questions before I get started with my journey, I can take those. Okay, cool. So, like I'm same batch as Keval. I joined CU at 2018 batch. We started our internship experience. Like I had a very similar internship hunt experience as Keval, where I started applying through some of our portals, reached out to some of our seniors, and luckily enough, I got a lot of callbacks through career fairs as well. My first company was Visa. and they're based off Denver. The team that came for me, interviewed me, was based off Denver. And they had very typical interview software SD intern experience where they had like a first round or a filter round in the campus and a couple of telephonic algorithmic coding rounds. Very simple, lead code, medium to lead code, easy. More often than not, I would recommend people to focus on LC mediums if at all you're really focusing on LCs. Ignore the hards for now. You can do it for your kicks later on. Easies are going to be easy, and they're very rarely going to be asked in interviews. But whatever is your pace, try and eventually reach to a point where you're doing a lot of LC mediums. That's again, if you're doing a lot of SD rounds. Things can vary from company to company. Like Keval said, they're doing a lot of system design these days, and that's slightly getting the trend. That's slightly being the trend in industry as well. And one good resource for system design I personally found very useful was something called as Grokking the System Design. You could Google it. It's a course for $50, but you could also find the PDF versions of them somehow, if you the right GitHub versions. But like it's going to be similar, where it's not going to be maintained, but it can give you a good head start, see and explore if that's something you like, and go forward. My next internship experience was Amazon. Amazon internship experience can vary from person to person. So if at all you're discussing with your friends, don't be alarmed. Some people have 3 final rounds. Some people have 1 final round. It's just a variability with Amazon specifically. One does not mean that you have done well, or one does not mean they're testing you more. It's just they're doing their data science to modify and get people in. I ended up choosing Amazon over Visa. I worked on their robotics org. They have something called as Keval robots, which basically are used in their fulfillment centers to fetch items for packaging and shipping and things like that. It was a really cool project. The reason I brought this up is I think in internship, you are given a chance to either work on something that's already existing, build on a feature or build on something else on a pre-existing product, or sometimes you get lucky, and when you're making a decision, you might get lucky and build something from the scratch. I would keep something in mind where try and pick something where you can explore a lot, no matter what the outcome is, and try and it's like you picking what do you say? It's like you're given options to pick and choose what is your 12 weeks going to be. So sometimes have these conversations with the recruiters or with the hiring managers and see if you have options on the kind of projects you can work even before you can get started with the internship. I was lucky enough, I had that option where they kind of gave me a problem statement and had like a very short discussion and told me on what I could ramp up on before getting started. So that's something to keep in mind. And I had a great internship experience, and unfortunately or fortunately, I did not get a convert. So don't be, so this is for those people who might or might not go through this experience. Don't be alarmed or disheartened if at all you did not get a convert. I'm doing fine. We all go through the similar full-time experiences later on, and it's a think of internship as a place where you get a lot of learning opportunities and try and push yourself mostly. After that was my full-time hunt. My 3rd semester was a little slow, and I think I couldn't agree more with Keval, where sometimes your odd semesters, your fall semesters, things will be slow in terms of hiring. Because of the budgeting, or the companies have not decided on what kind of roles or the number of roles they want, with an exception being the major big companies like Microsoft, Amazon, that hire throughout. Some of these nice small companies or mid-level companies slowly start coming up with their budgeting for orgs in January, and that's when you start seeing a lot of recs opening up. And spring is where a lot of magic started happening for me. I started interviewing with a bunch of companies. I think I got like 8 or 9 callbacks. Again, my tip here is increase your funnel size. When you're applying, have like a large funnel, obviously with the roles that you're going to be comfortable doing if you get selected. Just as an example, I was applying anywhere between 30 to 50 roles per day as I got to November, December time zone. And like to give you a rough number, you would get like 10 to 15% callbacks. So don't try and increase your funnel size as much as possible. Again, it's individual case-to-case basis. That's my experience. So initially I started interviewing with MathWorks. I got a convert there. And then I went on with Alexa, Amazon Alexa AI. I got an MLE role there. So I chose that over MathWorks. And MLE roles are slightly tricky, wherein they're going to be a little more subject oriented rather than algorithmical. They're going to be placed into the rounds are going to be somewhat like code k-means in 30 minutes and prove their convergence. They're going to get into even deep learning networks. So it's going to be very team specific. Try and if you are going to go pick something which is very domain specific, I would try and brush up on those as much as possible. Know what the team does, know what are like some of the state of the art models, architectures, and have like some implementation level abilities. If you're looking at MLEs or if you're looking at applied scientists, try and get the theoretical backend for it. After that, I was interviewing with this small company called Deep Cell. What they do is cancer machine learning to early identification of cancer, and it's one of the best interview experiences I had. So if someone's looking for really cool interview experience, I think personally I found that to be the best. They had purely theoretical based rounds, and I did get an offer from them as well. So I chose that over Alexa. And finally, I got Oracle, and they decided to sponsor my H1, and I got picked for Oracle's H1, and I decided to choose that over others. Just a tip for these people, for people who are like, who already have offers in their second year, try and negotiate with your companies to see if you can also, if they can file for immigration even before you graduate. It's a possible option. It's completely based on the company, but it's just a tip which I found very useful in my case. And yeah, after that, I'm here at OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and we mostly are trying to build a cloud similar to AWS. We are trying to get there, but it's a long way there. And that was my experience. I would recommend having some time frame from your graduation date to your start date, because sometimes OPT does take some time. It's a totally different advice where you need to try and apply to OPT as early as possible, because there were a couple of incidents where OPT got extended, or like the USCIS processing times were delayed. This is again on an immigration front, nothing related to the job front. That's my experience. If you guys have any questions, me and Keval are here. Happy to take any individual experience.
I guess if there are no, I guess, internship and job specific questions, feel free to ask any questions related as well. But oh yeah, there's a question for you, Karthik. How or where can we search referrals?
So you just need to find your, so go to career portals mostly, or LinkedIn, find the requisition ID you're trying to look for. And just find if you have any alumni or any friends or anyone else who's working in that company, and all you have to do is send in your resume and the requisition link. That's how it works in Oracle. But just find people who are already working in that company and send in your resume, and the rest will be taken care by them. Did that answer your question, Krishna?
I think the next question is how much time it takes for OPT start to end on average. Okay, so I think the question is how much time that it takes. Okay, so the duration of your OPTs, there are two kinds of OPT. One is pre-completion and the other one is post-completion.
Yeah, so actually my question was basically how much time it takes to get processed, like how early you should apply. Like,
oh, okay, got it.
before your graduation. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, first of all, you can apply, you need an offer to apply for an OPT, right?
Yeah.
And then once you have that offer, then you can just reach out. In fact, you know what, you can also apply before you have an offer. You can get a tentative, you can apply tentatively. But if you apply early, like if you apply towards January or February, so the earlier you apply, the processing time is less. It can be anywhere between 30 days to 3 months. So yeah, that's essentially it. Now let's say if you are graduating uh, and then you need to apply for your OPT, then and you still are looking for jobs, then it is advisable that you put a tentative date based on your graduation, so things fall in place. But yeah, I wouldn't like to answer that a lot of that because it changes every year, and the best resources ISSS and your other peers to get the latest info.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And then how much time does a company give you to respond to an offer? Well, completely up to the company, very subjective, but usually based on what I've seen, they give you up to 1 to 2 weeks. That's the usual case. It might even be less if you are working with startups. It might be more if you're working with startups as well, as they might be flexible until your job starts. But yeah, so once you just have that option, and now the biggest question is that let's say once you get an offer and that's your very first offer and you accept it, and is it a good practice to still look for a better offer or to decline that offer? Now, well, it's ideally the company and the career cell over at CU will say that please don't do that, but almost everyone is interested in their career growth, and they would continue looking for jobs, better opportunities if you're not satisfied. Oh, worst case, what will happen is the company that that you accepted the offer from and don't decide to go or just cancel on last minute, they might place a short-term ban on you. So it totally depends. That is also subjective on the company. So it's essentially a thought to ponder over at that time. And yeah, Karthik, do you want to add something on this?
Oh yeah, so I agree to that. Typically, most companies give you 2 weeks. You can always negotiate for more time if you have something in the pipeline. Let's say I'm parallelly interviewing with Apple and Amazon already made me an offer, and Apple's interview is coming up next week or something like that. You can always negotiate. Recruiters are open; they know your you'll have interleaving things or you'll have interleaving timelines. So you can always negotiate for that, but typically 2 weeks is what you can expect. And what's the other part? Sorry.
Yeah, that essentially rejecting the previous offer once you get a new one.
Oh yeah. So I would not. People do that. I did that too. I rejected Visa after I got Amazon. Technically, it's called reneging an offer. Each company responds in a particular fashion. Visa has a blacklisting policy for a few years. Some companies are they understand and they're okay, and they might let you interview the next month itself. And I know people who joined back the company, they've reneged as well, because the new company for some reason had to retrieve their offer, or had to something changed during COVID, and they had budgeting issues or team reorgs, and something went wrong, and they went back to the old companies, and they were more than happy to take them back. So personally, I would say make a call. It's okay, but make a calculative decision. See what are the risks, and if you are okay with the risks, you can always decide on interviewing further. When in doubt, always reach out to the recruiter. Every company is different. Always reach out to the recruiter or your hiring manager and just explain your situation, and people are more than understanding. They're not going to take it personally. And you can also reach out to the career cell. They're very nice set of people there too. And in fact, career cell will have statistical info as to how a company reacts as well. So you might have like better insights.
Hello, Karthik. Hello, Keval. Thank you so much for such insightful resources. I have one question. So if you previously worked in a company like Oracle in India, can you, if you apply here for internships, will they give you preference, or like it's from scratch, the entire process?
So I could tell you what happens in Oracle. Oracle, there's the whole, your resume is seen by HR, right? And or like a recruiting manager. They do have a preference scheme from what I remember. They do value people who have already worked in the same company. And that's similar with some other companies as well. I know people who in Amazon who were working for Amazon, and when they applied, they got a preferential selection, and they in fact started off at higher roles than what people would have typically started off with. I know people who had similar years of experience across two different companies, and the guy who had same number of years of experience at Amazon got an SDE2 as opposed to SDE1 to the other guy. So they do have a preferential selection because they feel you know the culture and you've gone through the grunt of the whole onboarding process. But again, it depends on company to company. I would not take that word as a complete golden rule, because sometimes it's an automated selection process rather than someone looking at your resume. And in those cases, you really cannot have any say.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I have one question, couple of questions on the similar lines. So I wanted to ask, how much do this company value prior work experience? So just to give in context, I will have around 4 years of work experience by next fall. So I will be joining in next fall. I am asking this because I have heard from some people that companies might not value prior work experience for new college graduate positions. So they consider it as a clean slate. I personally don't know if that's true, but yeah, I just wanted to check. And second question is, so considering that work experience, would it be possible to apply for more experienced positions?
Is this question, are you targeting internships or full-time jobs?
Full-time jobs in general.
Okay, so I think if the posting that you are applying to, if your work experience is related to that posting, then I think it is valuable. But in short, I think they do value any kind of work experience that you have, especially the one that is in tech. So if you have work experience in that, and like just iterating on Karthik's point, it will also get counted towards your promotions and on that kind of profile or kind of level that you get. So it is because I can personally vouch for that, because I have many of my colleagues and peers from my batch who have clearly used their past work experience to get better positions, and also to get interviews, and also put a more impact on their interview based on their work experience. So even for internships it matters, and companies definitely consider it, given that it is related to the job posting. So yeah, and you might hear things like, hey, if you worked in XYZ company outside US, if you have worked for 3 years, then it's only equivalent to 1 year in the US. Well, that totally depends on the company and the recruiter and the team and how they see it. It is very, very subjective. They might see that 3 years as 1 year, or they might see that 3 years as 5 years as well. So yeah, it is not generic, but in short, too long, it is valuable, and it is definitely a good plus point.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I have one question. So this is related to referral. So like, should we finish our application first and then should we go and ask for referrals, or is it like, should we find someone to actually refer us and then go and apply? Because I kind of feel if we wait for referral, it might delay the application, right?
Yeah, that's a very good and fair question, but I think based on the referral system, and the tool that most of the companies use, JobBite, to manage referrals or something similar. So based on the thing is, you need to apply with the referral in most of the companies. So it is very difficult to track down a referral that came in later with an existing application. So it's always advised that have one application with the referral. So at least in the big companies. So yeah, but you're right. It sometimes it would delay things, especially your posting. But yeah, that's where I think you'll have to make the tough decision and see that, hey, is it worth waiting, let's say, a month for a referral to come in, or should I reach out to someone else from the company, or should I just apply for the referral in that case, apply without a referral in that case.
Yeah, and don't stop yourself or hold yourself back from bugging the person. Just keep bugging them. It's totally fine. No one's going to take any offense on that. So just, you got to do, yeah, what are you going to do?
I have one quick question. So were you guys doing LC daily, or like, so I've been doing LC, but I'm not like super consistent. I've been doing medium problems, as Karthik mentioned. But even if I've done many DP problems and graph problems, but it is too difficult to come up with a solution while giving the interviews, because DP problems are easy to get the table, but the equation is too damn tough to come up with in the interview. So what do you guys like, heavily doing LC every day, or like it's a few days in the week you were doing LCs and then you discuss with your friends, and then in the next week few problems? How were you guys doing on the LC?
Depends on what you're targeting. I'll be very honest and straightforward here. So if you're really targeting lead code heavy companies, then you would need to grind those DP and graph questions until you get until you have seen most of them, or you just come up with the equations one fine day. So it's essentially that. But I would, so in case otherwise, if you're targeting on just getting your first profile or first breakthrough, and you're not worried about what kind of company it is, I think doing lead code multiple times a week, but not every day, should be fine. What do you think, Karthik? How much did you do?
I was very similar. I was doing it a few days a week. But again, when I got callbacks from these LC heavy companies, Facebook, Uber, those guys are very tough to crack, to be honest. Those were the days when my priorities changed. I used to spend 8 hours a day doing LC that time. Suddenly from 8 hours a week, or like 7 hours a week. So it all depends on what you have in the pipeline. That being said, I would rather recommend you being consistent than have those bursts of peaks and troughs. So I would recommend anywhere between 1 or 2 problems a day is good. You don't have to like do every new problem or pick new concept. It's like exercising, right? You're training your muscle memory or your brain memory. So just pick a problem in the morning, wander when you are somewhere, and then just take it as it goes.
Yeah, that's the best way, I guess. That's the better way to do it. Now I guess we are on time, but we'll just give you one last chance to post your final questions in the chat, and then
I have one. I've written out in the chat, but I'll just say it anyway. So like Keval elaborated on how to prepare for like SDE specific roles, would you, Karthik, have any similar specific tips for like ML engineering roles? And also I wanted to ask you, how different is it from preparing for, say, data scientist or applied ML scientist roles?
Right. So SD roles is, like Keval said, lead code, system design, mix of those. ML roles, if you're looking at MLE, they're going to still have LC and some system design, but there's going to be at least one round where they're going to ask you simple ML algorithmic implementation questions. At least that's been my experience with 3 or 4 companies I've interviewed with. Someone was like, implement k-means and prove their convergence. Someone else was like, here's a random forest Python implementation and add boosting or bagging techniques to it, or something like that, where they're going to ask you to enhance or implement very standard set of algorithms. So if you're familiar with Kaggle competitions, or if you've been active in any of those forums, and if you're trying to be competitively implementing your MLE algorithms there, it's the same logic. But applied scientists, things go up a notch. You have to have a really strong theoretical background. People talked about the papers we published, the kind of thought processes we built on why was this framework, or like why was this more explainable, or why was this more data processing pipelines more handleable, or things get really theoretical. My tips there is look at a lot of current architectures in industries when it comes to ML. There are a lot of resources out there. There are books that talk about practical ML and how do you tune your, how do you even take theory of ML to practicality. So have that in addition to your core ML. Like for deep learning, have like a solid book, Ian Goodfellow. Or for ML, I recommend Tom Michel. And obviously taking the courses in CU Boulder and having a good project there, and having maybe even attempting a paper is something that would add like a really high value to it. Apart from that, it's just be strong on your foundations. They're not going to expect something very specific, but a very standard set of algorithms, but you being strong on your core.
Right. You mentioned something about architecture. So have you found there to be a standard framework that people use in industry? Is it like one of TensorFlow, PyTorch, or JAX, or does that not matter? If you're just good on one, you're like, is that good enough?
You can pick one. You don't have to be very particular on one over the other, but you need to be strong in one of them at least.
Okay.
Yeah. So architecture being different from the framework itself. So they want to see how you think on what type of model you would pick. Would you add things like boosting or bagging, and do you have like any feedback mechanisms? What if you're looking at any deep learning ones? How would you even architecture what type of a deep learning architecture would you pick? What are the loss functions you would look at, and things like that. But it's going to be framework agnostic, so you don't have to worry about that.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
I see one more question.
Yeah.
Regarding compensations. So yeah, in some of the, I think Hemant posted this, in some of the companies applications, they asked what what we expect as salary compensation. What should we expect as salaries in average company for 1, 2, 3 years of work experience? So it's interesting that they're asking for applications. It's something new to me. I would typically, or at least if this is usually what used to happen in my case, where at the time of offer, the recruiter asks, what is your expectation? And most of us were like, well, what is the median for a geographical location? And or like we would want the recruiter to make their offer. And if you feel it's high or low, you negotiate from there. Well, if it's high, you just be happy. If it's low, you negotiate. In applications, is that like, if it's like a mandatory question, look at portals like TeamBlind, levels.fyi, and know what is like the median curve. And I would just put that number if it's like a mandatory question. If not, just leave it.
It wasn't a mandatory question in the 2 applications where I saw it, but I was wondering how work experience affects that, because one of my friends who joined TAMU about 2 years ago and is now graduating, he mentioned that his work experiences, 3 years, 4 years of work experience, differentiated his salary and compensation from his peers who had 1, 2 years of work experience. So how does work, like in your experience with your batch, how does work experience affect those people, affect the...
So just iterating on Karthik's point, if you go to levels.fyi, if you have heard of that,
he mentioned that, yes.
Yeah, so if you go there and if you look at the individual data points, so their data is collected from original entries from candidates and employers, and it is very reliable data. So if you look at those data points, it also has the years of experience. Also at the company and also outside the company. So if you just notice that pattern, you can definitely come up with a great number that, hey, okay, so these are multiple offers in this range with 5 years, 4 years of work experience. I should pitch something like that. And especially you should be also open to negotiating once you have your initial offer. It is very common in the US, and it is like definitely you should at least give it one try.
Okay, thank you.
But in short, with our batch, it did play a role in the compensation and also in the level of the job. So in short.
And one small addition with that is make sure your negotiations somehow are aligned with the way the interview went. If you think it went really strong, you can push for stronger negotiations, 10% or 15% or 20%. If you think your interview was not so great, play safe there as well. So.
Okay, thank you for that.
And Karthik, you had mentioned some I think system design resource for $50. I think my audio was cracking at that point, so I didn't quite catch that. Can you please repeat it?
Of course. It's called Grokking the System Design. Grokking the System Design.
Got it. Thanks.
Awesome. I think any other questions, feel free to email us. The email is probably linked in invite somewhere, or you can find us on LinkedIn. I have a very unique name, and Keval does too. So you can always find us on LinkedIn, and make sure to feel free to reach out to us if you want any referrals or any other further questions.
As I have one quick question, are you guys planning to come on the campus on 23rd? There's an event for the graduates.
Oh, you mean day after tomorrow, in 2 days?
Yeah. On 23rd, there's an event at 4:30 p.m. I guess. So for the graduates, it's in-person event. So it's happening like for the first time in 2 years. So.
Wow. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'm in Denver right now, so might as well come. But I guess Karthik, where are you? I think you are in Seattle, I think.
No, I'm in India right now.
Oh, what? Are you stuck there?
No. I'm flying on the 4th.
Oh, so. Nice. Good. Nice.
So I'll be missing. It's a lot of miles to travel in 2 days. So
cool, guys. I think that's pretty much it with this session. And yeah, thank you thank you and all the best for your journey, be it first year or second year. And yeah, it's great to be a part of the CU community, and it's a very good network, and our department is also booming. So I think by the time we get a bit old, it should definitely be in better ranks. I personally think it is definitely undervalued in terms of rankings, but once here how great it is. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Take care. I'll stop the recording. Oh, sorry, Karthik, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, thank you guys. I couldn't agree more with Keval. And again, feel free to reach out to us if there's anything you guys want to talk. Always there.